Greetings.
Hello.
Greet.
My greeting.
Well met.
I greet you.
Greetings, traveler.
Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to 100 episode. Yeah. Hello and welcome to episode 182. What?
Hello, welcome to 100 episode. I'm Concede. Welcome to Ridiculous Hat.
It's
This is Gadgets in New York, all the way
Okay.
from Botticus.
my
Welcome,
brain.
everyone.
My brain is fried from just thinking about cards. Just cards. Do you think that words matter right now? It's cards. Let's try this
That was
again.
my favorite opening of all time. I
That's-
love that.
I'm-
That was great.
I'm over here just like, that's basically me. So, let's try this again. Welcome to episode 182 of Concede, a Hearthstone cardcast dedicated to making the cards give me my cards I want new cards more accessible to us now. Joining you live from Gadgetstan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat, I want some cards. Joining us from Karazhan, California, it's Botticus. Botticus, do you also want new cards?
What kind of question is that? Of course I want new cards. I want
And-
new Shaman Murlocs. Ha, ha, ha.
Yes. Speaking of
excited.
people who want shaman cards and all the other cards, joining you from the Maelstrom, Louisiana, it's Appa, who also doesn't have the new cards yet. Appa, how you feeling, buddy?
I feel like I want these new cards. I'm also questioning my residency right now because I'm from the Maelstrom, but all these shaman cards are Murlocs, and I feel like they don't reside within the Maelstrom. I feel like I need to change it to, like, water, Louisiana.
No, Maelstrom
That's what
Beach.
shaman does now.
Maelstrom Beach.
Maelstrom Beach? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a real place, but it sounds plausible.
I don't know. You said it with confidence, and you played way more WoW than I have, so I just kind of thought it was a real place.
I also said with confidence, welcome to 182 of Concede, so it's... Or whatever I said. I don't know what I said, but I was very confident about it.
It was a jumble.
Yes.
That made a lot more sense than what you said.
Yes. Okay, well, I don't know what I said.
It was like welcome to 100 episode of Concede or something.
I don't know. All the syllables just like they were definitely disordered. Ugh. Anyways, when I'm not jonesing for cards, I'm appreciating you, patrons and listeners, because we're supported in large part by you. In fact, entirely by you. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/coinconcede or leave us an iTunes review, and that really helps other people find the show, which we want them to do, especially over the next 6 days when you can't play with the new cards, which you may have noticed we all kind of want to do. So, Appa, you go first. How's life in Ladder? Talk to us.
It's good. It's stressful because school, but aside from school, it's cool. Didn't mean to snap that one off, but we did. Yeah, Ladder. I haven't been playing a ton of Ladder because I've been doing research papers and stuff. But what I have been playing, I've been playing on Asia right now because I got my account up from rank 25 to I think rank 3 last season. So I reset, and I'm trying to make a push for Legend on there before rotation happens because I don't have a lot of cards. I just have Midrange Hunter, and that deck is broken. And 29% of my games so far have been against Hunter on Asia. And man, those mirrors are not fun. But the deck's really good, and I've learned it a lot better recently. Like, I understood like the core strategy of the deck, but I was just playing it a little inefficiently. And yeah, just been... Basically, I'm doing this thing where if there's ever a broken deck again, I'm going to play that, because I didn't play Raza Priest until it went to Wild. That was sufficiently nerfed, like sufficiently way weaker, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, man, I wish I actually played this while it was in Standard more. And the same thing goes for like mid-range Shaman, because I didn't play very much then. And then I just feel like I miss out on the busted decks because they're so clearly head and shoulders above everything else that I'm just like, man, I don't really want to play that. But I'm trying to go against how I've gone in the past, which is avoiding them, and I'm trying to like play them and get the experience with them under my belt. So when they leave, I can appreciate them and not miss them.
Let me tell you, as somebody who has tried to always at least play some of each of the broken decks when they're in their heyday in standard, I will say after playing a little bit of mid-range Hunter today, nowhere close to as good as Raza Priest. Very, very good. Still probably the best deck in standard right now, but compared to Raza Priest, it does not feel quite the same. Although I did Rexar somebody today, and that felt a little dirty. Okay, it felt a lot a bit dirty.
Yeah,
Because
I had a Hunter mirror that I was playing. I think it was to get to rank 4, and I was super far ahead on board. I had 2-turn lethal set up on my opponent. Then they played Rexar, took away some of my board. I set up a 2-turn lethal again, and then the next turn they exploding bloat bat me with lifesteal and rush. I'm like, I hate this card. I hate all of Year of the Mammoth. Burn it in a fire. Just watch it burn. I hate it. Take it away.
yeah, I trackinged and could have taken a kill command, but instead took Rexar just in case, and got my opponent down to 7 or 6 or something, and then they played Velen and Spirit Lashed back up to 29 or something. Like they went back to almost full, and then I just Rexar'd them, and eventually they died. So like,
Yes, just in case the game goes past turn 6, you need to play that Rexar. That's the condition in which the card is good. Yeah, I'm not like burn You're the Mammoth to the ground levels quite yet, but I wouldn't do it, but I empathize.
Yeah, I've also played just way too much of this format, like on purpose, for the past
Sure.
few months. So I'm just so burnt out on. I'm like, ugh.
I'm not
really
saying
excited to
I'm not
talk
saying
about
it's a
these
good
new
format. I wouldn't plan the arson, but if you asked me to be an accomplice, I would think about it for a while. And so
You're the guy in the streets that whenever somebody throws like a bottle through the window, you're like, okay, I guess it's time to start looting. I'm not going to start it, but there's a TV right there, and there's nothing in front of it. I'm
I'm
gonna take it.
the Fifth Amendment was invented for this exact reason. The point here is, I'm ready for it to go. I'm not ready for it to have never existed, because power creep needs to happen. You both played Magic, so we're going to make another Magic reference, and I hope this doesn't put off too many people that never played, but Rise of Shadows looks like Invasion, when Mammoth was Urza's, and Raven was Masks, and now this is Invasion, right? So Urza's, for those that didn't get it, super crazy overpowered, tons of design mistakes. All of Wizards R&D actually got called into the office by the vice president, says never let this happen again. I guess he wasn't still the vice president when Mirrodin came out, but that's another story. Then Mass was the next year's set, and that block was powered down so clearly that it was terrible. Like, not even fun to open. There were mechanics like every player could discard cards for marginal effects. That was the stuff that was happening in that set. Except for one super powerful mechanic called Rebels, which meant the same thing happened every game. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Baku and Gan. And then after the crazy spike up, and then after the huge spike down, now we're entering at right in between, where we take a few risks, but we don't go as far. And we're okay with the board mattering, because that's where the most fun happens. It's right in the middle. So I think that's where we're going, and I'm ready to be in the middle. And I'm ready to
I don't know what you're talking about, Hat. The first box that I ever opened was Invasion, and I opened some sweet, I think they were 6 mana dragons. They might have been
Yes.
7 mana 3 color dragons.
Nope, 6 mana. That was the set of
6 mana 3
yeah.
color dragons. Oh yeah, opened up some sweet dragons. I had no idea how to play Magic, so I just thought they were cool. And also, I didn't have mana bases that could actually support them, so I didn't actually get to play
Yes.
them. But it was sweet. I enjoyed opening dragons.
And with those 6 mana 3-color dragons is where Kibler got the nickname Dragon Master. Bringing
That's
it back
true.
to Hearthstone. Let's
Yes.
go.
Thank you for bringing it around before we got completely off track. The point here is, for how I've been doing on Life and Ladder, if any of you listened to the Jared Tendler episode, you remember that you've got your A game, your B game, and your C game, and you're always practicing something. In this meta, and especially over the last couple weeks, a lot of C game reps. Whole lot of C game reps. Because what I've been doing is opening up a Hearthstone, looking at the decks. These don't have any Rise of Shadows cards in them, huh? But I really want to play Hearthstone. But I don't want to play this Hearthstone. Guess I'll play anyway. Start a game. It's Odd Paladin. I'm just like, why did I click play? Why did I do this? I didn't want to do this. Even if I win, it's not fun. And I've played a little bit. I've tried some full-on combo priest, not wall priest because I'm not that kind of person. I've tried some mid-range death rattle rogue. I've really just been clearing my quests and jonesing hard for next week. So, yeah. It'll be fun. Well, the closest thing we can get to...
Wait, what about my week?
Oh, I thought you talked about your week, but you talked about your childhood instead. Botticus, how was the part of your life after Invasion came out? How's it been since? Specifically recently, the past 7 days.
Up and down. Last week's been good.
That's kind of deep.
I finished rank 2 full stars, so I had to win a game to get to rank 5, and that didn't happen. So we lost a couple to go down. But I've been just kind of doing a farewell tour of a bunch of decks, just kind of switching up every couple games because I want to get the full remember all the full experiences of playing all these decks that I've gotten to know and love and hate over the last year or so. So I got back up to rank 5 with some Odd Warrior because everybody seemed like they were playing some more aggressive decks. And then I've just been trying to play a lot of, mostly probably Elemental Shaman. And guys, I did it. I beat a Wall Priest with Elemental Shaman. It brings my win percentage up to like 20% against that deck. So I'm pretty stoked. That win was a big one for me. But yeah, just that. Rolled out the Elemental Mage a little bit just before the cast. That was got the W with Elemental Mage, and then played a little bit of mid-range Hunter, and then realized that deck doesn't seem to be fully rotating, or at least some version of it's probably not rotating. So got a couple games with Rexar, and that was enough for that. And I don't know, just playing all the stuff that I can only play with for another week or so. And then really excited to talk about these new cards, which is probably what we should get to doing because there's a lot to talk about. I think we all have a lot to say about new cards, but first we should talk a little news. So speaking of new cards, the final card reveal stream happened today. Kibler joined Ixar to play a few decks against Chalky, and I didn't get to pay as much attention to this as I've gotten to before, but it went pretty smoothly, a little more smoothly than the last card reveal stream. Fortunately, all the lackeys worked this time, so that was good.
No. See, Chalky has just practiced his micro since the last video. He's just manually adding them much faster now.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, and also the number of decks lined up with the number of games they were playing, which made a lot more sense than the last card reveal stream. I don't know, just small things they probably could have done to maybe make the last one go smoother, but this was a lot of fun, and we got to see a bunch of new cards, including a Shaman Murloc deck with Hagatha in it, and that was super sweet. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I know Hat was super busy all day, didn't really get a chance to watch much of it, but Appa, you said you got a glimpse of it. Was there any big takeaways you had from it? Anything memorable that you enjoyed?
Not really any big takeaways. I don't really pay attention to like the gameplay while it's going on. I just kind of sit there and wait for the next card to be drawn. I'm like, what does that one do? And then I just kind of divert my attention for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, nothing too big in terms of takeaways. I mean, I'm saving all my hot takes for decksplanations, so I don't want to get too deep into the cards themselves. But it was definitely nice. I feel so bad for Cora because like the last live stream was just like a technical disaster, basically. Like you play a lackey card and then it just doesn't even actually work. Like, what are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah, and then I don't know. The thing that stuck out to me is just that they're like, we're gonna play 5 games with these 3 decks. So no matter what you do, one of the decks you're just not gonna get to, like, you just don't get to play it twice. And by the time they had finished playing all 3 decks once, they had seen all of the new cards. So it's not like they were still going to be revealing new cards after the excess games. So it just felt a little awkward. So hopefully they take note of that next time and either make more decks to play with so that it lines up with the number of games you're playing, or condense it down to equal. I don't know. Small issues that hopefully get resolved by the next time. But in addition to the card reveal stream afterwards, all of the cards were posted on the PlayHearthstone website, and so we were able to digest in a whole ton of new cards. There's almost too many to have takes on all of them, but we selected a bunch that we want to talk about later in the decksplanations episode, so we can go through that later. You'll get to hear a bunch of hot takes. I think we all have something nice saved up to talk about. But in addition to that stream, there will be a theory crafting live stream. Basically, they chose a select group of Twitch streamers who are going to have access to all of the cards from Rise of Shadows, and are going to get to kind of do whatever they want with them. They might try to build some meta decks. They might get to build some meme decks. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of meme decks, but you can check this out. I believe this starts. Is this start during the pre-releases, right? Or is this just tomorrow?
This is tomorrow, the day before
Tomorrow,
the
okay.
pre-releases.
Got
So
it. Okay.
I don't think they actually get to play with the cards. I think they're just talking. It's just talking streams.
Oh.
Because it's theory
Okay.
crafting, so we haven't gotten any
Well,
information indicating that they have access to the cards.
I believe I might have misheard this, but I believe on stream the when Kibler was talking to Ixar, he said he was going to have access to the cards, but I might be mistaken there. But either way, the streamers that you can check out, they said they're going to be able to play some games. I'm almost positive.
Oh, so then maybe I didn't get to watch that. I didn't realize it was that clear. Okay, so they get to play with the cards a full day early, he said, totally intending to delete all the stuff he said before this. It's pretty cool that they get
Yeah.
access early, and I saw actually some people talking online about how the new players might just copy it, but I expect these to be somewhat goofy theory crafts with the people they've selected here.
Yeah, so the players they selected for this theory crafting live stream is Ali Straza, Crip, Trump, Kibler, Nicolena, and Disguised Toast. So yeah, it's a really cool group of people that we're gonna get to see. We're gonna get to see definitely a lot of dragons. I assume there's going to be some dragon decks with Kibler and Ali in there, and then Crip always has kind of a different take on standard decks than most people. Toast obviously is going to try to come up with probably the memeiest deck he possibly can. So I'm looking forward to hopefully getting to peek in on some of their thoughts on or initial impressions of all the new cards. Where
I'm
they
sure
want to put the cards.
Crip will theory craft 30 legendaries. He really likes playing the 30 legendary deck in any format because he's rich.
Okay. Yeah, fair. So yeah, that's tomorrow, and then a couple more little news items we have here. The PlayHearthstone website published a few different videos a couple of them regarding the Hearthstone Masters system, and uh, just kind of some interesting information here. You were talking earlier about this first video. Why don't you kind of give me your thoughts of how they presented this video?
So the Hearthstone YouTube channels don't have a ton of views. They're way lower than I expected because this is on the Hearthstone Esports channel. So these videos have under 10,000 views. And this one in particular, I think had like 6,000, something like that. And it's a 2-minute kind of explanation as to what Masters qualifiers are. Clearly for players that don't have a lot of background in what the Masters qualifiers are. They kind of gloss over the time aspect. They highlight the specialist format. And they talk about they're free to enter. And even if you don't win, you can earn packs for your collection. And I think it's really, really significant that they made that a particular point. Botticus, you watched the video, it kind of stood out in the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You had brought up this point to me as I was watching the video, and I was trying to relate it a little bit to Magic the Gathering Online, but the comparison just really isn't that good because like it's comparable in terms of amount of hours it takes to play in these larger Magic tournaments. Like the time investment is similar, but with Magic you're actually paying to enter the tournaments, and there's a return, and the prize payouts are generally much bigger. They don't have a lot of, I don't know if they have any. I don't think Magic Online has any real free tournaments, and I'm not super familiar with Arena.
Wizards does
But
not do things for free. There is not a thing you can do to earn something in that ecosystem that is free.
I mean, that some stores have free Friday Night Magics, but that's kind of beside the point. I I I think it's kind of interesting just that obviously the packs probably appeal to not necessarily the players that are looking to compete in these tournaments, but it is another way to get packs for some people, I guess. But it's kind of weird because it feels like the people who could use the packs probably don't have collections that can necessarily support them doing well in this tournament for the most part. Like that subset of people, like the Venn diagram that has people that need packs and people who want to compete in Hearthstone Masters tournaments, there's like a little tiny sliver of people in the middle that where it applies to both. So it's interesting marketing decision, but yeah, there it is. It's there for you if that's what you're into, I guess.
This video is clearly trying to broaden appeal, and I'm not sure exactly why. These tournaments were already kind of bank full and signed up completely, and they don't really draw enough attention to the investment of time required to play. I really don't think the average person understands what they're getting into when they sign up here. So I'm all about casting a wider net and bringing people into the idea of esports. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that this was kind of a little bit of a almost disingenuous explanation of what actually happens. And it kind of just doesn't align the reality and the logistics with the people that would be watching it. I don't know. I think that what they're probably trying to do to encourage successful esports programs year over year, they need to have people constantly interested. And so they're making sure these tournaments stay full by attracting people that I think generally would not be interested or aware, and also may not be aligned with the level of competition necessary to be successful in these environments.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Appa, you've played in a couple of these tournaments. Well, at least one, right? You made it
Yeah,
to the semis.
I played in one on Asia. I think I got to the 4th round. After 400 mirrors. Yeah, it's like the thing is like the audiences that this appeals to are the grinders, like the competitive players who are actively trying to qualify for the Masters, the like Masters tour event, like for this one in Las Vegas. Like the people who are playing in it, like wanting to get first, are actively trying to go to Las Vegas. Whereas like it seems like this video is trying to appeal to a subset of people. It's like, okay, just playing this for fun. They might not even know that this like qualifies for Las Vegas or like what Las Vegas is yet. Um, but yeah, I mean, after playing for 10 hours and losing in the semifinals, it, I mean, free stuff is always nice, but like 20 packs just didn't feel like anything. Like I think I got like 2 epics and like a golden rare out of my packs or something, and I was like, this wasn't even close to worth it. Not even remotely in the same ballpark. I mean, like the experience and like playing in a tournament and stuff is something I enjoy doing, so I'm not unhappy about it. But in terms of like reward for time you put in, like if you don't get first, it's like you're getting nothing if you're a competitive player, because unless you're playing on a different server, if you're a competitive player, you have most of the cards you need already to make the top decks. That's pretty much what my collection is. And I've talked to some other competitive players too, and they're like, yeah, my collection, like if they don't spend a lot of money on the game, like yeah, my collection, I just have the best decks in standard and like some extra cards. Like I don't have very much like fluff in my collection. So I mean, it doesn't really appeal to the people who are actually playing in the tournaments. But yeah, it's just a really top heavy system, and I think this meta just being not good. Like I think I can say at this point definitively that this meta is just bad in terms of just enjoyment. I mean, same decks like past year and a half. It's been kind of brutal to sit through this many sets of the same thing over and over again. And I mean, specialist really exacerbates that issue. So playing in these formats, getting so close, and then only getting packs as a real payout kind of feels pretty bad. But I mean, I think it'll feel better for me personally once rotation happens. Like I'll feel a lot better getting packs of the newer set um whenever rotation happens and the new set comes out, because one, I'll be wanting more packs of that set anyways because the set came out, and two, it won't be hunter or warlock or you're losing, which is what specialist is right now.
Well, one question I had: did any of the other Open Cups, did those ever reward packs or reward anything for doing well in them?
Um So I think the last Open Cup I actually played in was in 2016 when the system was very very different. And what happened with that one was it was run by a third party Latin American company, and the people who played in their sponsored Open Cups, because Blizzard like let different organizers run the events, they would accumulate points like within their own little circuit, and then at the end of, I think it's like 3 or 4 months or whatever it was, the people with the highest points or Open Cup um, had the ability to play in a tournament for like money that the Latin American company was putting on. So I know it was different for a lot of the other third party organizers, but I won that event and got points that went towards playoffs. Didn't end up making playoffs, but that's how it worked back then. It's like if you top 8 in Open Cup, you get a certain amount of points. But then I also got an invitation to play in their tournament. So that's my experience with all the Open Cups. I think I only played in like 3 or 4 before Masters qualifiers. I mean, it's been a long time since I played in online tournaments because I haven't really had that many in the past few years. But yeah, it would usually give points at least to top 8, and sometimes even it would pay down in terms of points like even further. But that's something that people would get when grinding Open Cups, is like if you top 8 enough of these, like this will build towards your playoff points, which I think is how it should work, as opposed to what they did was they just cut out Open Cups completely, and they were like, all right, ladder matters and then LAN events matter and then nothing else. Whereas in the past it was like, okay, you can grind Open Cups, even if you don't win, you're still getting points, but even if you do win, doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified to playoffs. It gave you like 15 points or something usually the cutoff was like 45 or above or something like that. So you'd have to grind quite a few of those and get some ladder finishes. But that's I would like seeing Open Cups or Masters qualifiers move to a system that awards intangible rewards like points, so it feels like you're actually progressing towards something, as opposed to, I mean, we've seen Lorinda's tweets and his like stat analysis on Twitter. He has a chart called the Yikes Club, which is people who have played in like so many tournaments and played X amount of matches, like over 100, 150 matches, and like top eighted a bunch, and they have nothing to show for it besides packs that they do not care about. So that's the real issue with the Masters qualifiers right now. Specialist, I think the format will be a non-issue once rotation happens, but the structure and the payout still leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth who does not get first place. And even sometimes the people who get first place are like, man, this stinks. Now I just got to pay my way to Vegas. I just sat through 12 hours to like only get basically the ability to enter in a tournament. So there's definitely some stuff with the prize structure that can be ironed out and should be ironed out, I think. But yeah, that's just been my experience in the past and my view of it right now.
Yeah, I was trying to get an idea of what it was like before, because it's kind of hard to balance everything out, I think, considering the old Open Cup system, like what you were talking about. Your the big problem with that is it felt like you had to play in so many Open Cups. I remember that's what people were used to complain about, is that you just had to play in so many to try to get your points up so that you could qualify that way by grinding so much, and could lead to burnout. And like, I look at these tournaments, and like, obviously the pack reward is not ideal for the majority of players, but it is kind of a free tournament, so it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard for me to argue with that kind of system necessarily. Just the it's giving some reward, even if the reward is not necessarily what you're looking to get. Um Maybe somewhere in the middle. I don't know. It's so hard to think of a system off the top of my head that would appease the majority of its players, but
Well, like,
hopefully over
this
time they
one
can.
does. This is objectively the best system to appeal to the largest number of people. The people that care about the prize don't care about the packs. People that care about the packs are unlikely to care about the prize. It's free. You can earn a collection this way if you need to. If you do care about playing on a different region, like if you want to compete on Asia and you only have one deck and then you win 20 packs, you probably would have had a better job working a minimum, or a better ROI working a minimum wage job and then taking all that money and buying packs. But you don't have to. You can play Hearthstone instead, which is generally more fun than minimum wage job, even in Rexar mirrors. And this is widely appealing. From our perspective as tournament enthusiasts and, engagers, we see the tournament as, yeah, well, why would you play if you don't want to win the trophy and the invite? But a lot of people want to play Hearthstone and build their one deck for that format or have access to a second one or whatever. It has the wide appeal. I just think that there are compromises for both sides, and my issue with the video, to bring it back around, is that it didn't really touch on the compromises for either side. It's more, and I mean, it's a marketing video. It's a 2-minute marketing video saying, hey, come play in these free tournaments and get some free stuff. That's all true, but it's not free, it's included. And that's a very, very important difference. And I think the first time, if I were a newer player and I put a deck together, and and you can use the smart deck builder and you can make something competitive by just clicking create deck. Let's say someone takes a deck and does reasonably well with it, and then there are 8 rounds in the tournament. It's like, oh boy, I'm going to win a bunch of packs. How much longer to go? Oh, another 4 hours. Okay. And I think that would be kind of a poor experience, even though it's a free tournament where they give you free packs. I don't know. I wish that was more apparent, because it doesn't have to be emphasized, but it does have to be mentioned, and it wasn't at all. And that time commitment combined with the scheduling difficulty is a really big thing that tournament players have to deal with. And now, if Blizzard is trying to court people with a more casual approach to the game, or just with less awareness to the point where they need a YouTube video explaining the format, those folks are going to be in for a rude awakening, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, no, that all fair points. And honestly, I think this is a subject we could talk about forever, but it's release week, and we've already spent too much time on this. So we also have 2 other videos linked here. I don't even really want to talk about them. Last thing we'll bring up for news is HS Worlds groups have been announced. I'll just go over each group and we'll say who we think is going to win in each group. So Group A, Bunny Hopper, Blood Trail, SN Jing, and Zhao A clear leader for me winning this group would be Bunny Hopper. What about Appa? Who do you think is going to win this group?
I'm actually gonna go with Zhao Ti. He hasn't made a ton of noise this year, but he's always been one of China's just best players, like always like top 1 or 2 basically, and all of the other Chinese players really respect him. And he was the points leader for China coming into Worlds, which is how he qualified. So, I mean, I haven't really seen him play that much, but I know other pro players talk really, really highly of him. So I'm excited to watch him play, and I wouldn't be surprised if he won the group.
What about you, Hat?
So, like, Appa's right, but don't ever bet against Bunny Hopper. And so I'm not going to bet against Bunny Hopper. Zhao Ti is great. Blood Trail is also has a really, really nice record as well in the APAC region over the past year. But
I mean, everybody in all of these groups has achieved some high level of success. So
yes, but only
like,
one of them is Bunny Hopper, so I'm
Yeah.
voting Bunny Hopper because his
all right,
Yeah,
we'll go.
success is
We'll go
crazy.
reverse order for the next group. Did you want to say something, Appa?
Yeah, I was gonna say Jing is probably the least known, probably just in general at Worlds, but he qualified through last season's championships, and his play during the championships was really impressive. So I would definitely keep an eye out for him.
All right, Group B, Language Hacker. Jesus. Language Hacker, Killing All Day, Muzzy, and LF Yu Ying. I'm going to choose Language Hacker. I met him at DreamHack Austin. Really cool guy, extremely smart. I've heard him on the coaching podcast,
Hearth Coach.
Hearth Coach, that
Yes.
one. And he's real smart and also extremely good. So I expect him to win this group. But there's a bunch of killers in this group. So
Oh, yeah.
what do you think, Hat?
So my head is saying Muzzy, but my heart is saying Yu Ying, because what he did to that Hakarwaggle druid last championship was like borderline illegal. It was so pleasurable to watch. He bamboozled his opponent and all 3 casters simultaneously, and that was really impressive. And I don't know how on earth he had that much practice against Hakarwaggle druid, but just the level of planning, of macro game planning that went into what he was doing really, really impressed me. Muzzy has more consistent results over a long period of time. It would be one of those 2, but I got to go with my boy Yu Ying. Got to do it.
Appa?
So I want Killing All Day to win this group, but I think Yu Ying's gonna win because of what Hat said. The dude there are very few times that a player plays so well that it makes me reassess my fundamental understanding of Hearthstone. And watching Yu Ying play in championships, I was like, oh, okay, so I still have this much to go before I'm considered one of the best in the world, because this dude's insane. And it's very rare that happens. It'll happen usually once or twice in like an HCT like year. There'll be like a tournament where somebody just plays completely out of their mind, and I'm just like, man, this game is so deep. And it's been a while, but Yu Ying, that was one of those times. He is very good.
Group C, Hunter Ace, Ike, A Numbers, Just Saying. Hat or Appa first.
I mean, aren't we all just gonna pick the same person?
I
mean,
hope so.
It's just Hunter Ace for this one.
Yeah. I mean, also extremely good players in this group, but
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
as
hold
much
on.
as I
Don't
like
bet.
Ike
Hold
and just
on.
saying, like, Hunter Ace is bananas.
If Hunter Ace was not in this group and it was just Ike, A numbers, and just saying, then who would you pick?
Just saying.
Yeah, I think so too.
I do like Ike a lot, but I think in terms of strength of players, it's probably Hunter Ace, just saying. And then I don't know enough about A numbers. I saw him play in the one championship, but that's it. I know Ike is a very strong player, but just saying has shown a like really really great level of consistency this year, and he's always been in the running for like one of the best NA players. And then Hunter Ace is just bananas.
Yeah, Saiyan kind of broke his streak of choking in pressure moments, and so now that that's behind him, and he seemed to find a better relationship with the game, I agree that he's great. A numbers would be a close third for me. I do think that, if I'm being honest, I think Killing All Day in the last group and Ike in this group are just a little bit outclassed in terms of quality of player. Like, not saying they're bad. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying the killers in these groups, those guys are grinders, but people like Muzzy and Hunter Ace are natural talents and grinders. And of course, anyone in this group is not betting against Hunter Ace. I expect 9 out of 10 people, if not more, to pick him out of this group.
Yeah, it feels like Killing All Day and Ike have results, and people like Muzzy, Just Saying, and Hunter Ace have just stats.
Have careers, right?
Yeah.
Like, Killing All Day and Ike have a result, a significant result. Ike has won a bunch of community tournaments. Killing All Day grinded and grinded and grinded, and he got this one qualification. Not disrespecting the guy at all, but just in terms of career versus trophy, some of these folks are career players. That's why as well I'm not voting for Language Hacker. I think Language Hacker is great and really smart and really good at the game, but just doesn't have the consistent results. I should vote for Muzzy in Group B, but Yu Ying, man, you don't deal with the Togwaggle that well and not get my vote.
All right, I'll ask you about this last group. Roger, Tyler, Bloodyface, Viper.
This is the hardest group. This is the hardest group to pick because all 4 of these players are exceptional. Roger is a scumbag, but a very good player. Tyler's a great
I like
player.
how he doesn't even sugarcoat it. He's like, nope, just firing off the scumbag, just from the hip.
Okay, Blizzard banned him for a year. It's been confirmed, official scumbag. You don't get banned for a year without being a scumbag.
Blizzard sponsored scumbag.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't ask their PR department first. Chris Sierra, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Bloodyface is hard to vote against because he's top forward 2 championships in a row, which is also silly. It's so silly. Him and Bunny Hopper actually caused Ike and I think Shao T to be invited because they had both top forward too many times and had an extra invite and like, I don't need this, you can have it. It's fine. So when you have, in the last championships, 2 invites trickling down, it says a lot about Hearthstone as an esport. I think Roger is the most likely to win this group.
I'm going to say Bloodyface. I chose him for the Winter Championships, and he got me my full amount of packs, so I'm going to choose him again for this group.
He's a great
even
player.
Though my heart's actually kind of with Tyler.
I want
in
Tyler
my heart,
to win.
I want Tyler to win. But
I want Tyler, Ike, Killing All Day, and Chao T to win. Right? I want scrappy underdogs, or even Jing. I want the scrappy underdogs. But I have to pick Roger because he's been playing too well for too long. Despite the shenanigans, he's been a top player for years and years and years, and there's a reason for that. What do you think, Appa?
So, I'm going to go with Viper, but for the same reasons you picked Roger. So, Viper has been a little under the radar for years now, and is only recently having like really big success. But he's always been like testing with top pros and been in the conversation in like testing groups or like when people are crediting things for decks. And after going to Philadelphia and just like being in the same room as him, like he was a very quiet person, but like just from the way he carried himself and was playing the games, you could tell that he had just a really significant deep understanding of Hearthstone. And after watching him like just crush multiple championships, like it's really hard to bet against him for me.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me about Viper is that he likes being weird a lot. He likes playing weird decks. And I worry that, like, two things are going to happen with him. Either he's going to go off the grid and break the format, or he's going to go off the grid and get crushed because he's playing Peanut Shaman 2019. And I don't know which it's going to be. I don't know which direction he's going, and that makes me nervous. I do agree that he always seems to figure something out.
All I have to say is Peanut Shaman for that specific tournament where tons of people brought on Paladin seems pretty good. After that, not so good. But that's kind of the nature of bringing offbeat decks to a tournament, is like you build them for the specific meta that you're expecting, and then they're garbage everywhere else, which was pretty much the case with that. But yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from.
And he's building for a tournament that's not going to have a defined meta, or at least not a clearly defined meta, because it's 3 weeks after the expansion comes out. So I don't know. I hope he wins it all with something we've never seen before, and then we'll see it on Ladder Forever, and then I'll hate his guts for it. But until then, I don't know what's going to happen. Basically, I just asked him to invent Q-Block, and I don't like that.
Don't do that. Please don't. Please don't.
I mean, not
Joy
literally.
Buzz kill us.
Not literally
Please.
Q-Block.
Please don't invent the Joy Buzzkill deck that we'll have to play against for the next year. All right. That was a lot more news than I planned to talk about. So let's just get into tournaments so we can talk about new cards after tournaments.
And this tournament will be the lightning round. So let's go.
It's the grand tournament!
All right. So we did have a tournament, WSOE 5. Super great production value. Gia reclaimed, or I guess retained, her crown over Pathra in the finals. Really strange tournament format. It was Gia as the defending champion. She only played one match. Pathra, Slissa, Alistraza, and Songbird Cora were the 4 contestants in the main bracket. And then there were show matches, which I really enjoyed, of Zalay versus Reynad, and Just Saiyan versus Amnesiac. And they were talking to each other while they were playing, and it was suitably hilarious. So, I definitely recommend watching the VODs. I definitely recommend anytime Reynad gives an interview. The guy is just so charming, disarmingly so. And it was really fun watching these guys talk to each other, but also it was really fun watching the women play and the production value of the tournament. They had these like wrestling hype videos between rounds where they got out of expensive cars and were like making cool poses, and there were a bunch of black and white like vignettes and flashback sequences, and they made Gia look like a mob boss. The production was crazy. The only thing I didn't like is that whenever the video changed on the left side of the screen between the casters, there was like a fingernail painted hand just kind of like pulling it off the screen, and it creeped me out. And literally every single person on Twitter that I talked to was like, wow, this production value is great. About those hands, though. And it was just kind of creepy. But either way, definitely go back and watch it. We're not going to go into the format because it could not have been weirder. First of all, the Hall of Fame cards, they didn't let you play with any of them. They said take them out of standard. So no Baku, no Gen, no Baku and Gen, odd or even cards. No Divine Favor. No Naturalize. I almost said no preparation, but no, we're keeping that one for some reason.
No Doomguard.
No Doomguard. Yeah. So, and then it was 7 deck Last Hero Standing. Ban, pick, ban, pick, ban, pick, ban. So, ban 4, keep 3 simultaneously. Bring 7 decks. It was weird. This is not relevant to you. If you were listening and you think it's relevant to you, it's not, and you didn't think that, so don't worry about it. But I will tell you what won and what got second place. Gia won because she's the boss, with Tempo Mage, Dragon Control Priest, OTK Paladin, Midrange Hunter, Quest Warrior, Cube Tempo Rogue, and Token Druid. By the way, that Token Druid is legit. And then Patra got second place with Elemental Shaman, Midrange Hunter, Malygos Druid, Pirate Tempo Rogue, Xerix Priest, Big Spell Mage, and Mechathune Warlock. It was weird, but really fun to watch. There are a couple tournaments we're going to avoid the line by line because it's not talking about new cards, and I honestly don't have the patience for it today. But there are a couple of games you should watch. Go check out Korra versus Patra in the upper final. Game 1, and I think it was Game 3. The Elemental Shaman versus Priest game, and then the Clone Priest versus Mali Druid game. Both were fascinating. In the first game, I'll spoil it a little bit. Korra's playing Elemental Shaman with Grumble and Shutterwalk and built a Rod of Roasting with a 2 Blaze Caller triggers and a Calamos trigger, and just kept playing Shutterwalk, Grumble, Shutterwalk, Grumble, Shutterwalk, Grumble until one player died. And it was amazing, and it was super cool. Go check it out. She built Rod of Roasting like you can get in the dungeon run where play Pyroblast until somebody dies. She built that. It was cool. As far as Master Qualifiers go, well, we have a defined meta. It's only for 6 more days, so I will tell you as brief as possible. Play Hunter or Warlock. There were 26 Hunters and 12 Warlocks in the top 8s, 14 Mid-Hunters, 11 Cubes, 7 Mid-Warlocks. It was super interesting. The most recent round of tournaments, the last 6 Masters Qual, were won by 4 different Warlocks and 2 Mid-Hunters. A Control Warlock, a Mid-Range Warlock, an Even Warlock, and a Zoo Warlock, and then 2 Mid-Range Hunters. And this Zoo Warlock was not an April Fool's joke, despite having a Hellfire in the main deck, despite the secondary deck being -2 Light Warden +2 Tar Creeper, and the tertiary deck being identical to the primary deck. I am not joking.
Why? Why?
Because they could. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. We also have our top 8 of the Coin Concede Specialist Series. That is definitely not a league. If you're listening, Blizzard PR, it's not a league. But we are suspending the series until after the rotation because we can and we want to, and it'll be way more interesting. So we'll see who takes the win there. And it's coming. We will definitely have at least 2, if not 3, series between now and next expansion. At least 1 specialist, at least 1 non-specialist. I'm pushing for strike, but we'll see what happens. And then we might even have time for a third. We're going to keep these things going. So if you want to play some Hearthstone in a tournament style that's in a series that's definitely not a league but has that style of play, you are more than welcome and encouraged to stop by our Discord. And that is my rapid-fire tournament section because we know what we want. We know what we want. What do we want?
Cards.
When do we want them?
All of them. Now.
In 6 days. Because we can't have them before then.
I mean, I don't want them in 6 days. I want them now.
No.
I have to wait 6 days.
That's true. You're both right. You're both right. Let's talk about cards.
We got cards. We got all the cards now, actually. All of the cards have been spoiled after the reveal stream today.
Hold the phone up.
And-
Hold the phone. Hold the phone.
What?
I just got an email from Chris Sierra.
Okay.
Super cool. Breaking news. Really exciting. Do I have a soundbite for breaking news? There we go. It's breaking. That guy broke. Chris Sierra says, when you log into Hearthstone, once the patch ships, there are platform-specific card backs. If you log in on iOS, you get the Pristine Scenes. If you log in on Android, you get the Legion Schemes. And if you log in on desktop, you get the Machine Dreams. 3 different card backs. And they
Memes,
rhyme.
Dreams, and schemes.
Scenes, Schemes, and Dreams, yes.
Memes, beans, and serene.
And Submarines, yes. So, log in.
What is happening? Let's talk about new cards. What are you doing?
This is new card
Dreams,
backs.
schemes.
Yay, card backs. Who cares? Cards. People
Chris
wanna hear
Sierra-
about cards.
Chris
I want
Sierra
to
sent
argue
us an
with
email.
you guys about what cards are good.
There'll
I
be so much
appreciate
time
this
for that.
info. This is great. Perfect. New card backs. Yay. Cards. Let's go.
I vote.
All right. Anyways,
Can I explain the thing? Or you
Okay,
wanna
Appa
explain
can
it?
talk now because I'm going to edit out what he said before. So Appa can reintroduce the section.
all right. Yeah. So all of the cards have been revealed. All of them after the reveal stream. How many are in the set? 150? 135? However many hundred and some are all available to look at, and we've all had a chance to look through the visual guide, through the spoilers, and pick out some cards to talk about. And we're going by a tier system. We're not making it numbered. We're making it a letter tier system to make it a little bit easier to understand and not confuse between like different card reviews. At F, we have cards that are just absolutely horrendous. An example would be Master of Ceremonies or, spoiler alert, Dr. Boom's Scheme. At D, we have either very narrow tech cards or inefficient cards that may be required in extreme metas. So you have cards like Eater of Secrets and Cenarius. At C, you have the solid inclusions, kind of just your bread and butter of classes or tools that different decks have access to. It doesn't make the decks exist, but it probably goes in it if you have the support. This would be a card like True Silver Champion. It's not inherently busted. It's not like too bad, not too good. It's just right in the middle. It's a solid card. You're always happy to play with it. At B, we have cards that make decks more viable because they exist. Vilespine Slayer is a good example. A is it makes the strategy viable pretty much on its own, and that's like Blood Reaver Gul'dan. Or like Skull of the Minari would be a good example, even though both of those go in the same deck. Both of those are A's. That deck has a whole lot of A's. And then we have an extra
Sunkeeper
tier.
Tarim is probably also in there for another card.
Yeah, I think Tarim's a great example. Most of the playable Death Knights, Rexar and Jaina, definitely both qualify. I think Jaina actually more so, because you could play Hunter without Rexar, but you couldn't play Big Mage without Jaina for an entire year. I would make an argument for like Primordial Glyph is in between A and B. You wouldn't really play Mage for a lot of its existence without that card until they printed Baku. Baku's between A and S.
Yeah, and then we have S tier is the extra one, and this is like so overpowering that it's always good, and it's a card that's going to get nerfed. So recent examples would be Gen and Baku. Baku more so than Gen, and then Giggling Inventor, Call to Arms, these kind of things are S tier cards. So
Corridor
basically,
Creeper.
yeah, Corridor Creeper, Bone Mare, basically Kobolds and Catacombs on release. All of that one was all S tier. Yeah, so basically F is terrible, C is really solid, and then A is very good, and then D is between F and C, and then B is going to be between C and A. So just things to give you a reasonable kind of benchmark that we're going by. Do you want to just start off with you, Hat, and just take our worst cards and then just go up the scale that way?
Well, so we're also doing a random hot take on a card from today, because we had a lot of cards from today. I'm going to do a random hot take, because I want to do that. And there's a card that says, well, do you like Recruit? And I said no, and it says, well, how about you recruit all of your minions? So it's called Darkest Hour. It's a 6-mana Warlock epic spell, and it says destroy all of your friendly minions. For each one, get a minion out of your deck. And I specifically picked this card because I don't think this card's very good. And the reason why I picked this card and why I don't think it's good is because I want to use this as a springboard for talking about how Recruit got broken. It's not because getting minions out of your deck is inherently a broken thing. I mean, yes, it can be. But y'all remember Gather Your Party? That didn't make you sacrifice any minions, and that deck was bad. Because getting a single minion in formats with removal, and also in formats where you can play Sap because there isn't a stupid 2-drop that doesn't make you play no 2-drops, where a single minion is not a big deal. It was a big deal in Priest because it kept coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back in larger numbers, as we are all aware of. But when Recruit doesn't have a restriction, the challenge of building your deck with only minions you want to get later makes Recruit so much more difficult to use. And then this card requires you to have minions and then go get better ones. I think it's very difficult to do that in Standard. In Wild, you could have like Forbidden Ritual, and Standard, I guess you have Reform Scheme, but I don't think that this card is going to see a lot of play in Standard because of how difficult it is to use, at least during this release cycle. Now, it's entirely possible. We'll print a bunch of token generators, and then we'll be able to survive early game and go get some stupid big idiots, even though Void Lord's rotating out. I don't know. But I wanted to use this as a discussion point to discuss why Recruit is only broken when you add the restriction to it, because it means you can go pick and choose what you want, and when you can't do that easily, then that means the effect is not really worth building around when the sacrifice is greater than the payoff, and I think this is an example of a card where the sacrifice is greater than the payoff. What about you, Bot?
I agree. I think this doesn't look like a particularly interesting. Well, interesting is not the right word. I think I agree that the payoff does not necessarily seem worth it. I think the best thing I heard with this is you play the 3-mana spell that gets better every turn, and after you have it in your hand for 7 turns, you play that on 9 mana, and then play this afterwards and get 7 other minions, I guess. I don't know. It seems medium
Yes.
to bad.
I would give it a D on our rating scale for Darkest Hour.
Yeah,
That's what D
so-
stands for.
Yeah, so by the way, didn't realize that this is what we were doing. I just thought we were choosing 6 cards to talk about. So my 6 cards are just cards I wanted to talk about, because I do not care about talking about Fs. Fs and Ds, I don't have interesting things to say about them, so I'm just going to talk about 6 cards.
You have no Fs? Man.
I mean, there are probably Fs in the set, but I don't want to waste time talking about them. They're just bad cards that I don't want to play, so I'm going to talk about cards I want to play, or I think are interesting or cool, or I have ideas about.
Press F for this show format.
So I apologize. You guys can, you guys will be doing something different than what I'm doing, but nonetheless, here we go. I guess the card I had a hot take on is Waggle Pick. It is a 4-mana epic rogue weapon, a 4/2 with Death Rattle. Return a random friendly minion to your hand. It costs 2 less. Now, I'm not going to go as far as saying that this card is as good as the Warrior one that I should know off the Deathbite.
You're comparing this card to Deathbite.
Yes, okay, I'm gonna do that. So Deathbite was
This
insanely
is
good.
a spicy take. I like it.
Okay, 4-mana 4/2 weapon, pretty strong. Not something rogues ever had access to, being able to deal 4 damage this easily. It's a double. It's a double removal spell essentially for rogue.
Real quick, we just played Odd Rogue with Deadly Poison, right? That was in this standard format.
Yeah.
It's a 4/2 weapon.
What is a 4/2 weapon?
When you press the button and then play a Deadly Poison.
Okay.
But you also get an extra card with it.
Very different. And then so Deathbite was 4-mana 4/2 weapon with warrior effect tagged onto it. This is 4-mana 4/2 weapon, rogue card tagged onto it. Obviously, one you can target, one you can't. This is Shadow Step attached to this. I have a feeling you're going to be that in the decks you're going to play this card, you're going to want to be able to Shadow Step cards back to your hand. I think it's going to be quite powerful. I don't think it'll be as format defining as Deathbite, but I do think it's going to be very good in Rogue. It seems like it could be a very, very good Rogue card, and I would look out for playing with it, honestly. 4-mana deal 4 twice is in Rogue, even though you don't have armor up, which Warrior had. But I don't really know how much Warrior actually got to armor up, and also it's a weapon, so it doesn't go along with your hero power quite as well. But I'm optimistic about a card like this in Rogue.
So just to make sure that we're clear, for anyone that wasn't playing during Nax, because that was a while ago now, Deathbite was a 4-mana 4/2 weapon that said Death Rattle Whirlwind. Death Rattle deal 1 to all minions. And it was one of the best warrior weapons of all time, if not the best outside of maybe 2-mana Fiery War Axe. Because it advanced your game plan in multiple ways. Warrior's the class where damaging your own minion matters. Battle Rage is a thing. It was really big when Frothing Berserker and Grim Patron were big in the meta, and that combination was disgusting. It's a lot of damage. So damage is good, but Warrior at the time was either going face or caring about pinging its own minions. So for this card to be comparable, you don't get the removal aspect, and the Shadow Step effect is inherently tempo negative, so you have to really, really want it. If we still had Vilespine, I agree. All about it. We don't still have Vilespine. I'm just not sure what we're bouncing yet. And I think that's
that would be the
really,
biggest
really
thing,
big question.
honestly, is finding what you're bouncing.
Well, and also you can never play this with Hench Clan Thug. Never, ever play the two cards together. And that's not good because Rogue wants to be Hench Clan and thugging every game on 3 right now.
I think this card's gonna see a lot more play when Myra's gets nerfed. Because that's happening. I'm calling it right. That's my called shot right now.
No, Myra's won't get nerfed. Prep will get nerfed.
Yes, actually. You're right.
So you say you never play this with Hench Clan Thug? I don't know that that's actually true.
The two cards are innately anti-synergistic. I do agree that the amount of removal you get is significant. I don't know yet what we're bouncing this often or that we want to the point where we're making sure all of our minions in play are minions we want to Shadow Step, and we're okay with any of them, not just one that we want particularly, because it is random, and random is so much worse than targeted.
If you're
so
playing
much worse.
the Lackey deck with Togwaggle, this would be, I mean,
Sure.
the Togwaggle and the Waggle pick, then you
Well,
pick
yeah,
up some
and you get the
Togwaggle.
Miscreant back, and then you play it again for 1 mana. In that deck, this card goes in there, and then I'm not sure you're playing Hench Clan in that deck. Maybe you are just because it's too efficient. But yeah, in the Evil Miscreant Lackey deck, you were doing that every time, and you were happy about it. But I think this card's a little bit more specific, because Shadow Step a random minion means all of my minions I have to be okay with taking back to my hand. And I think that deck's hard to build right now. It doesn't mean it's not good. I haven't figured it out yet. I mean, it's day 0 of the expansion. That would be fun if that was what mattered, if getting minions back and generating that incremental value mattered. But I've seen that rogue deck before. I played the Shadowcaster deck. I've played played Pogo Rogo. I've played every deck that did that didn't have a 1-mana quest. And they were all too dirtily and not quite good enough. So I really hope that this is different. But we've seen this movie before.
Yeah, I think you're severely overestimating how bad it is with Hench Clan Thug, because personally, playing going weapon on 2 and then playing Hench Clan and attacking, and then playing this and attacking and removing something, and then attacking with a 5/5 Hench Clan Thug. How often are you really attacking with, like, is Hench Clan Thug not dead? Like, it feels extremely rare to me that my Hench Clan Thug survives for more than 2 turns, and my opponent's not just dead.
Sure, but then if it does, you're just making that scenario worse, and maybe you don't need to. Maybe you just stick with the 5/5. But if you attack and you bounce it, then you get a 3/3 back. So 1 mana 3/3, you attack the next turn, whatever. But you're losing 5 points of damage there. Or if you don't attack with your weapon, then you're just blanking your weapon. It's a trade-off. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker, but I'm saying it's a trade-off. And a significant one at that, I think.
I think, yeah, I don't think so. I think you just, like, there's also just situations in that where your Hench Clan just survives. Like, if your Hench Clan survives till you have 1 charge left of this pickaxe, then you just value trade your Hench Clan and then bounce your Hench Clan back to your hand and can play it again for 1 mana. It becomes a combo enabler and like another just a 1 mana 4/4. I don't know. I think I think this card's going to be very good. I think with the play patterns I can see in my head make me think this card's going to be very good. So that's why it's my hot take.
That was a
There was some
spicy little take. Yeah, so my hot take is Witch's Brew. And my hot take about it specifically is I think it's one of the best cards in the set. And my reasoning is, so Witch's Brew is a epic shaman spell. It's 2 mana. and it has the text repeatable this turn, which for those of you that have played since the Witchwood came out is called Echo. And you get to restore 4 health to something. It could be you, it could be your minion. It doesn't really matter. But the reason I think this is so good is I remember back to whenever Whispers of the Old Gods came out, and Control Paladin was pretty strong. A lot of that had to do with it having a really solid finisher in N'Zoth, and Shaman actually has that right now. Hagatha is actually a pretty solid way to close out a game in terms of being a control deck. And you also have Shudderwalk, which is very akin to N'Zoth and a great way to close out a game if you build your deck around it. But the thing that was there in Whispers was a card called Forbidden Healing. It was 0 mana, and you spent all of your mana, and you healed for double that amount. So at 2 mana, you healed for 4. At 4, you healed for 8. It's the same exact healing breakpoints as Witch's Cauldron, except this one gets to go different places, or it can just go all to your face. So at 10 mana, it's just heal for 20. And the flexibility of this is really, really powerful. And I played with the Forbidden Healing control decks a lot, and that card was insane in the deck. It was probably, I'd probably say about 25% of my games were probably won just because I had Forbidden Healing in my deck. My opponent went like super aggressive, and then like I got to like Equality Consecrate, like clear their board, and then just Forbidden Healing for a significant amount, and then they couldn't win because that card usually bridged you from the mid game to your late game bomb in N'Zoth or whatever big death rattle you had that was closing out the game. And Witch's Cauldron is just, or Witch's Brew is just that, but better. So I think being really similar to a previously really strong card, but being more flexible than that is really powerful, and I'm excited to play with this card a lot. It's also my pick for second card that I'm going to craft golden behind Hagatha.
Honestly, when I saw this card initially, I didn't think it was very good because I was comparing it to Healing Rain, which was a highly playable card in Shudderwalk Shaman. But then I realized once you said 10 mana heal for 20, that's a lot. And it's so, and as you said, it's so variable. This is actually quite exciting when I think about it. And also, it's one of the spells that I think I'm pretty happy to get off of Hagatha.
Oh
I'm
man,
looking
getting this off of Hagatha? That's gross.
yeah, and also you can just kind of dump it from your hand for 2 mana. If like cheap spells with Hagatha that you can just spend are really, really useful because your hand fills up so fast. And so all I have to say I give this a solid Slempo grade.
Yeah, this is going in Slimpo Shaman for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, after like parsing through all of the Murlocs that got spoiled today, I was looking around. I'm like, ooh, okay, we got Hagatha scheme. I've seen that one before. And then I got to Witch's Brew, and I was like, that seems fine. And then I just thought about it in the abstract. Like, what's the floor? What's the ceiling? Floor is like not super great. I mean, it's fine. It's a binding heal pretty much. And then ceiling is just forbidden healing, maxed out, but it goes wherever you want. And that's just bananas. Also, this with Spirit of the Frog, forget about it. Draw your whole deck. I think this
as
card
long
is
as your
really
deck is
good.
3 mana spells.
Yes. So I'd imagine a deck with this probably has like, if you have Frog and this, you'll probably have like Farsight, Lightning Storm,
Haunting Visions.
yeah, Haunting Visions, those kind of things. So you'll probably get some
Yeah.
value off of it if you do run Frog. But
Yeah, this card heals for a lot of life and cheaply, and that's generally infuriating. And Shaman got some of the best cards this expansion, and this is one of the few control cards in the set, and boy is it good, because that rate is just really efficient. Really, really efficient. So Okay, hold on though. On the hot take cards, we don't have grades written down. But give me a grade for Waggle Pick.
A. I'm going with A. I'm
You're comparing this to Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna. I'm. It's a hot take, so A minus. All right. I'm gonna use pluses and minuses.
We don't. What are you
You
doing?
don't.
Anything
I
that
do.
we're doing? Are you doing any single thing that we're doing? You're not writing
No.
down one card per grade. You're making up new grades. You're playing with Waggle Picks. You're bouncing your Hench Clan thugs. I don't know what's going on over there.
He's playing the Slumpo game. Look, you just delay your Hench Clan Thug a little bit, but then you get to play him later on and then combo something else because he costs 1. That's some slow tempo right there.
What I'm trying to understand is how much are your guys' Hench Clan thugs living past 5/5? That's what I seriously don't get. Is how often is your opponent not just dead and your Hench Clan thugs are just living to be 7/7s? I don't understand.
I mean,
what
it's not
world
living
this
to be
is we live in.
7/7s, but I have had a Hench Clan Thug value trade into multiple Tar Creepers before. We won't have good taunts anymore, I guess. But it's saying that it's never going to happen, so I'm not going to let it happen is a very different thing than saying it doesn't happen very much.
Speaking
You're
of
really
not having any good
comparing this
taunts, though,
card to Blood Reaver Gul'dan in power level? Can we give
just
it a
real
B?
quick.
B plus at the that's the lowest I will
Now
go.
we're
would
adding
be B
in
plus.
pluses.
I'm using the U.S. academic grading scale. Whatever that's called, whatever you want to call that.
I
It's
feel
A
misled. I feel
So
strongly
it's A through
misled.
F, A through F with pluses and minuses.
Did this one
That's
make
what-
an 88 on its exam? Is that what happened? An 88 or an
It's
89?
like a 88, 89.
Oh, good. We're going to a 100-point rating scale. This won't take
No,
forever.
it's a B plus. I hate all of you so much. Just talk about your stupid Fs. Go. Talk
Well,
about,
I was
talk about
gonna-
these
I was
bad
gonna-
cards you don't care about.
I was gonna fit something in real quick. Hat said we won't have very many good taunts. I forget the name of the card that got released in like the card dump today, but I think it's a neutral minion. It's a 4 mana 2/6 with taunt.
Oh, yeah. Proud
And-
Defender.
Yeah, it
4
says
mana
whenever
2/6
you have
plus
no
2
other
attack if it's
minions?
it's
Yeah,
your only
so-
minion.
So in a control deck with not a ton of like early game going on, it can just be a 4 mana 4/6 with taunt, which is pretty powerful. I think that card's kind of slept on right now too. But all right, let's move on before we get too off the rails here.
But wait, so Appa,
Um,
what grade are you giving your witch's brew?
I'm giving mine a B. Definitely not like like an archetype defining thing, but like
no, not
it'll
like a waggle
definitely-
pick.
No, it's not waggle pick good, but it's something that'll definitely make slower shaman decks way better because it exists. It's definitely really fantastic support in my opinion. So I'd give it a solid B.
All right, I think that's fair. And I give Darkest Hour a D, like I said before. No plus, no minus, because we hadn't discussed prior, but that's fine. All right, well, we're going to go in order. So me and Appa will read our Fs, and Botticus will read the first card in his list. Don't ask me why we're doing that. I guess it's because... Science! Because science. So...
I didn't understand what you were doing. Why are we
that much
talking
is
about
clear.
Fs? I just don't understand
Because
why
we
we're
have
talking
one
about
from
cards that
each.
suck.
We have one from each. We have to demonstrate why we think they're bad, and also we provide the listeners with a bunch of content to throw back in our faces later, and for us to throw back in each other's faces later when we call cards bad. Because I gave Skull of the Minari an F, and I want to make sure that's documented. It's good content.
I was not excited about Call to Arms, and that card
No,
actually got nerfed.
We've actually
Your
heard
card
about
didn't
that.
get touched.
No, somehow. I think it probably should have, but, you know, it's interactive if you have a Gluttonous Ooze on 5, so it's fine.
We should just do this whole segment on what cards Botticus is not excited about.
Oh,
Because
so
we'll find out some real
No.
sweet heaters out of this one.
I'm glad that we're going the other direction, that we're only talking about cards that Botticus is really excited about, so that a year from now, he can look at his golden waggle picks, and we can just look back at this segment, and we'll see what happens. We'll see. What, do you like the idea up of golden waggle picks? You
I
can't.
imagine Botticus just on day one of the expansion just being like, you know what? I'm gonna show hat. Just craft the golden waggle picks and then just have it be straight up garbage for a year from now and be like, yeah, you were right.
No,
Not saying I think the card's garbage, but that would be a fantastic scenario.
What I want
I'd
is
be
this.
fine with that.
I want a screenshot.
More memes.
I want a screenshot of Botticus facing down an X5 taunt with a 5/3 hench clan and a waggle pick equipped, and I just want that screenshot, and I'll make it my desktop background. I'll do it.
Yeah, you just trade the hench clan thug. What are you talking about?
Okay.
That's a fine situation. I don't understand.
Okay.
Well, why would you ever attack a waggle pick into a 5 toughness minion?
Well, then what do you have to bounce?
You don't have to bounce anything, just like you didn't have to whirlwind anything. What are you even saying? Oh,
Okay.
I'm upset.
So anyways, my first F, my only F that I'll be talking about is Mutate. It's a 0 mana shaman common spell. Common shaman. And it evolves 1 minion 1 time. It transforms a friendly minion to 1 that costs exactly 1 more. So, the reason this is an F, the reason that this card is laughably bad, this is kind of a good opportunity to explain a single random card, especially without Discover, is almost always never worth your time unless you're already getting a good deal. Blink Fox. You can play Blink Fox, because it's a 3 mana 3/3 that's pretty close to a good deal, and you get a card. Okay. But we've all heard the litany about a random legendary. Confessor Palatress jumps to mind, where a single random legendary is not generally worth your time. Getting one single other random spell or card is not generally worth your time. And Mutate, evolve 1 minion 1 time for the cost of a card. You have to be getting an additional card's worth of value of losing the minion you have and gaining another one without a battle cry. That is extremely rare to have happen, and there are a lot of low rolls. A lot of cards that have really great battle cries and are also 1/1s or 2/2s, and a lot of opportunity to swing and miss. Unstable Evolution mitigated that because you could just keep it going. Thrall kind of mitigated that, but still didn't really see a lot of play, but you could just keep it going. And that's really... You can't depend on getting enough of a result out of this card to ever justify spending the card, and that's not why it's an F. The reason why it's an F is because you would never put this card in your deck for the purpose of making any game plan better. It would never be in your first 30 cards. So, because of that, that's why this gets an F. The effect, if you get it randomly off a Hagatha, yes, it could win you a game, but you would never choose to put this in your deck, which is why it gets an F.
Miracle Shaman.
Yeah, I feel like the
Has a-
only instance where you would ever be okay putting this card in your deck would be a deck with Spirit of the Frog. But at that point, you have to ask yourself, why am I running this over Zap or Beaker Lightning in that deck? And you'd have to have a really good reason. And I don't really see one. We don't really have like Corridor Creeper that you want to evolve or anything.
Well, and
that you
those
can really
cards
cheat out.
trigger Lickum and Thunderhead for free, and this one doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 0 mana spells are always something you want to watch for, but I think I agree that this is likely not one that you will be wanting to watch for. I think I would probably have it closer to a D, but I can see that. Unless Gadget Stand Auctioneer finds its way into Shaman decks. So why don't we... Appa, let's just go ahead and go to your F before we go to my randomly selected card that I want to talk about.
My F is just Dr. Boom Scheme. I mostly picked it just to mess with Hat, but I think the card's one of the worst we've seen in a while. It's my only card on here that's really close to an F. I think Mutate is probably close to, so both of those would go on get an F grade for me, I think.
All right, so the first card I put
hold
on my list...
I want to make sure I'm
okay.
clear. I would be very surprised if this card saw any frequency of play, but because in a very fringe scenario I can see it in some specialist sideboards, maybe I would give it a D. But it's really inefficient and generally pretty bad. But sometimes big chunks of armor are the desperation move that you need. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Hat is just clinging on the potential that this card is not. This card is straight up F.
So there's
no. I will almost guarantee there will be no specialist lineup with Dr. Boom. I'd be willing to bet that a specialist lineup wins with the card Waggle Pick in it before any list has Dr. Boom Scheme in the sideboard. That's not a good comparison.
Okay, but if we're
wouldn't-
competing,
I wouldn't go that far because we just went over a specialist lineup that had Hellfire and all the zoo lists, and the primary and tertiary decks were the literal same. So you could just take that tertiary deck and throw some Dr. Boom Scheme in it. Just be like, we don't need that one. We'll just have it in there.
I'm saying Fibonacci said he wants to play, and he's known for some weird cards, and I doubt this is ever good enough. But I bet there's some world where someone brings this, and I bet it shows up on a Trollden video, and I'm looking forward to it. And that is the sum total of my belief in this card.
Okay. All right. So the first card I put on my list was a card that I was really excited to talk about because I think this card is really good. It's a Druid card, Crystal Song Portal, 2 mana Druid epic spell. Discover a Druid minion. If your hand has no minions, keep all 3. I honestly think that this card might be, in my opinion, the best card in the set. I think that Druid can quite easily make a deck without many minions in it, even though it is a minion-based deck. I think we saw on the pre-release stream, or whatever okay, I can't handle it, Appa. Go. What are you gonna say? I see your face.
You want to say that to me again? One more
Okay.
time for the camera?
All right, maybe not the best card in the set, but I think it's
all right, cool.
extremely good. Because I do think that it basically I kind of relate it to, oh my god, why can't I remember? It's like the most played card right now in Hunter that draws 3 cards.
Master's Call.
So it's So it reminds me of Master's Call in the sense that I think that what you have to do to make this card function is not it's not very deck intensive. I think it's easier to make a deck where this card works in it than, for instance, a Master's Call Hunter deck. And I looked at all of the Druid minions. Some of them are obviously not very good, but anytime that you're getting 3 minions for 2 mana, it's like very powerful. So I would look for this to make an impact. And it's also a card. It's not like your deck can't include minions. It's just that you need to be able to play your minions out before you play this card. And I just think that a refill option like this is quite good. So I think this card's powerful.
I see that with the tools Druid has, it's a little bit harder in this environment, but I can definitely see it, especially with still the volume of spells that Druid has available to them. Whispering Woods is still standard legal. You can still make a token deck that is mostly spells. And that's kind of compelling here because 2 mana, draw 3 cards is pretty good. I don't know how great Druid minions are right now. I don't feel like there are a ton of them.
I looked through. I think there's around 25 Druid minions, and I think about half of them fit actually really well into a tokeny style deck, and some of them are just big minions, which are kind of nice. there's a couple misses that you're not super thrilled about, but they're not necessarily blanks. I don't know. It just seemed really solid to me. Drawing 3 cards for 2 mana is really good, and I think the deck building restriction to make this card work is not very high. Like I said, you can include a few minions in your deck and just play them before you play this card, and it's really good. So,
Wait, is this your Book of Specters of 2019? Is that what this is?
Be. I don't know.
Well, you like 2 mana, draw 3 cards with a deck building restriction.
Yeah, except the like this deck building restriction is a lot less than Book of Specters, because Book of Specters essentially had to be 28 minions into Book of Specters. You could kind of weave in a couple spells in there, but it made it a lot worse. Whereas this one, you can include probably 6 minions or so, as long as they're relatively cheap, and just play them before you play this card and just draw 3 more minions.
I'm curious about that. I think Druid actually got a lot of really interesting cards this expansion. I do think this is one of them. All right.
What's your D? Well, I guess we already did your D. Do you have anything more to say about your D?
Phrasing. Do I have, what bumper am I gonna use?
It's so fluffy!
No, not that one. I'll find a more appropriate bumper to use. Botticus got it. We're gonna wait for him to not be dead. So anyways, Dr. Boom's scheme is...
I want it known that Botticus's face is red as a tomato right now.
He actually died. Yes.
He just turned into a beet.
Yes.
Beaticus, what's up?
Yeah.
Hi.
He actually died. So... Dr. Boom's scheme is, I think, a D by definition, but also Daring Escape, 1 mana rogue common spell, return all friendly minions to your hand. It's just so hard to use and so dirtily. D is for dirtle, and that's not good enough for me, because, again, I've seen this movie before. I've tried to make Shadowcaster-style rogues. If you're unfamiliar, it came out Whispers of the Old Gods, 5 mana 4/4, make a 1 mana 1/1 copy of a minion in play. I've tried to make rogue minions based on accumulating incremental value work for literally years. Actual years. It never works unless you play the rogue quest on turn 1. And it's not so much dirtily as literally evil. So, this card indicates to me, play a bunch of lackeys, and play the evil miscreant, get them all back to your hand, and play them again, and blah blah blah. We won't talk about any other rogue cards that return minions to your hand. I think that's been done already. But I think that it's so tempo negative that it's going to be really, really hard to use. You could use it with a Pogo Rogue, but I think I'd rather just Togwaggle Scheme or Lab Recruit or just put it back in my deck, because taking it off the board when Rogue already struggles when it falls behind is such a downside that you really have to have a lot of removal, and it doesn't discount the cards when you get them back in your hand. So I think it's just going to be too hard to use that, except for incredibly fringe scenarios, that it won't see play.
I think I forgot to rate my card. I wanted to rate Crystal Song Portal a B.
Okay. So, again, not Waggle Pick. Just making sure that I have your grading system correct, because it's not the same as ours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, Botticus, what would you rate your next card? And we'll get to Appa after.
All right, so the next card I want to talk about, I actually have a question about, because I should have done some research on it, but it's a hunter spell called 9 Lives. It's 3 mana epic. Discover a friendly Death Rattle minion that died this game, also trigger its Death Rattle. So when it says that, does that mean it resummons it, or it just triggers its Death Rattle?
You think this is 3 mana, get a high main, and 2 2/2s?
Yeah.
No, it is not that. No.
So it's just 3 mana, get a Death Rattle that happened this game?
And you draw the card.
So you get it
in
so
your
it's
hand.
3 mana, draw a high main, make 2 2/2s?
Draw a thing that died. this game
Okay.
and trigger its death rattle.
Okay.
It's very good. It's not
That's
3
yeah.
mana 10-9 stats. It's not that.
It's not eternal servitude for 3.
It's
Okay,
plus a
Because that
play
would have
dead.
been broken. I
Yes.
thought this card was a lot better. I still think it's probably pretty good because you have, if you only play, say, like 3 death rattles in your deck, you can play High Main, you can play Cairn, and you can play Spider Bomb. And you're pretty happy being able to discover one of those, get an extra copy of it. I don't know, seems like a fairly solid card. The fact that it doesn't resurrect it makes it significantly worse than what I thought it was. So, I mean, the other way, you had to still play the High Main and it had to die. So, I don't think it was completely out of reason to think that it could do this, but yeah, it's probably like a C or something in the right deck. I guess that means it's a D based on your scale.
I think it is a solid inclusion that does not make a deck exist, but probably goes in it if you have the support. I think that is exactly what that card is. It is not a very narrow tech card or an inefficient card that may be required in extreme meta.
You're right. Okay, so C.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
If you're playing High Main and Spider Bomb, that's almost enough by itself because you're also probably playing some kind of card draw or tutoring, and if you have one more death rattle, then you're happy getting any of the 3 things.
Burst Hunter with Cairn.
Yeah. Yep.
We can put Mukla in the deck too.
He's a beast.
It doesn't have a death rattle, so you don't have to worry about getting it off the 9 lives.
Not being able to get more Muklas is not a worry. It's a problem. Appa, what's your D?
Alright, so my D is Conjurer's Calling. And for those of you who are listening just by audio and don't have the spoiler in front of you, I would suggest that you go to Google and you type in Conjurer's Calling Hearthstone so you can understand what this card does, because it has a lot of text on it, and I had to read it at least 4 or 5 times before I fully understood what it did. It is a 3-mana mage spell with Twin Spell, which means you get another copy of it after you play it. And it says, destroy a minion, summon 2 minions of the same cost to replace it. And the reason I have this on my list as a D is I think if we're in an environment where mage in specialist potentially is in a matchup where it just cares about card quantity, cares less about card quality, but more about quantity of cards, then you might put Conjurer's Calling into one of your secondary or tertiary decks, because it does get you up a card at the end of it. You spend a card and you destroy your own minion, so that's you're basically turning your Conjurer's Calling into a random minion at that point, and then the next one you cast gets you an extra one. So it's very slow and very grindy, and random minions are very weird to evaluate cards that have like the random minion tagline to it. But I think if we're in an environment where you're just worried about getting it like the most mileage as possible out of your minions or out of your board, you might want to put this in one of your side decks. And I also think this card, it's possible that like a death rattle minion gets printed later on that's very powerful, that just being able to Conjurer's Calling while you play it and just destroy it and then get something else behind it could be strong. But yeah, I see some potential for this card, but it seems very fringe in its applications, so that's why I have it as a D. But I wanted to highlight it because it's a really interesting effect. The first time I read it, I was like, oh, okay, so it's an assassinate and you get 2 of the same card. And then I was like, wait, no, it doesn't. It gives the person whose minion died. And then I was like, wait, they're random. It's not the same thing. Okay. So yeah, it's a really interesting card. I'm excited to play with it, even if it's not very good.
This card reminds me of Evolve a lot. It's it feels like a card that you need something. it almost feels like you want to be doing something like Corridor Creeper and then targeting it with this. Like some way to cheat out something that's really expensive and then being able to something expensive that sucks, but then turning it into two good things. So like the card Evolve didn't really see play until somebody started playing the 5 mana make 3 2/2s that all cost 5 and then evolving them. So I think you would need a card that makes that interaction very powerful very early to have the see play. But yeah, I think I kind of put it around the same grade that you do, but I think Hat has it a little differently.
So I think this is actually the most interesting card in the set, or at least one of them. It is really fascinating, because there's a bunch going on here. First of all, random minions are bad. They're just not good. We talked about this already, especially when we were talking about Mutate. But this isn't quite Mutate. You get 2 of the minion you get, and you get 2 of this spell. 4 random minions, less bad than 1 random minion. 3 mana each time, it's a reasonable cost. The support in Mage is kind of interesting right now. Obviously, this is great with Khadgar. You get 4 minions. 4 is a lot, even when they're random. And cards like Meteorologist and Astromancer, you don't play them for their stats, you play them for their effect, and then you can get rid of them and get a bunch of 7-drops or 6-drops or whatever. Though if you're playing an Astromancer, you shouldn't need to follow that up with a wide board, but maybe you do, I don't know. And with Khadgar, that's great, but maybe not. And this is a really crappy polymorph. Now, logically, if a random minion is good for you in a pair, it's good for your opponent in a pair. So you don't really want to do something that's good against you if it's good for you, but if you have to kill a Doomsayer, or some kind of stupid taunt, or something that's going to kill you, it's a chance, right? It's something. It's better than having no option. Time will tell if that is good enough. This is the kind of card that we will have no idea of how good this card is until we play it. Because it has Twin Spell, and because it doubles, because it's double, I do think there's a chance of this being good. But I think C is the right grade for it. First, because it's Conjurer's Calling, that's 2 Cs. Second of all, I think that it's either really bad or strong, but I think that varies not only based on the deck composition around it, but each game you play with it. I think it's a very variant card by definition, which could theoretically make the environment more fun to play in, or sometimes you just get super high rolled and your opponent gets 2 King Crushes and you die, and that would be unfun. I don't know. I'm really curious to see about this card. I can see enough upside and downside that it's really hard to evaluate, so I'm going to put it smack in the middle of the scale.
All right, Hat, your C. Let's go.
Okay, so the card I gave a C to was Aranasi Broodmother. It's a 6-mana Warlock 4/6 demon. It's a common. And it says Taunt. And it says, when you draw this, restore 4 health to your hero. So, if Control Warlock is going to exist, it will play 2 of this card. I actually had a conversation on Twitter this week about, isn't this card bad because it gives away that it's there? And Firebat talked on Omnislash about how little value he finds in information in Hearthstone and how it's often overstated about how relevant it can be to know what your opponent has in their hand. Because sometimes you know, and it's a kill command, and then they hit you in the face with it and you're still dead even though you knew it was coming. You couldn't do anything. Sometimes, if there's a taunt or something, like this card, your opponent can save a shield breaker or a spell breaker or a hunter's mark or whatever, and that can be relevant, but not as relevant as healing for 4 for free. Healing for 4 for free is a big deal, because that's a free single cast of Witch's Brew. We were doing that with Shroom Brewer. The amount of stabilization from 30 life to 34 life over the course of a game is actually pretty enormous. Gives you basically an extra turn a lot of the time. And a 6-mana 4/6 taunt is, it's not the best deal in the world, but it's enough to slow the game down. So I think that I would expect to see this as an auto-include in any controlling Warlock deck, because the value proposition of the two halves of this card is enough that you pretty much are priced into playing it unless nobody's going face. And in that case, you're probably not playing Control Warlock, because that's what that deck does.
Yeah, I was not super high on this card. I just looked at it as like, it's kind of an overcosted 6-mana 4/6 with taunt. Seems okay. Like 5-mana 4/6 is about the rate that you expect for a 5-drop, and then you tack on the 1 extra mana for the taunt, which was how I was viewing it. But your comparison to Shroom Brewer is actually really apt, I think. I played a lot of Even Warlock, and a lot of the time in that deck, honestly, you'll just play a Shroom Brewer as 4-mana gain 4. Like, you could care less about the body, because you have so much other stuff going on a lot of the time. You usually just play it as essentially a 4-mana spell to gain 4. So being able to do that for free actually seems pretty powerful. So I think I'd agree with you that it's probably a C here, and I think it'll see more play than how I kind of interpreted it on my initial glance. I saw it and I was like, seems kind of expensive, but I mean, 4 health isn't nothing. That's for sure.
And this is the life tap class. So if you get it in your mulligan or your first couple turns, then maybe it's not that great. But as soon as you start life tapping, it's basically free. And free cards, if you life tap twice and then draw a Broodmother, I think it's a pretty decent value. And a 6-mana 4/6 taunt is not something you would play if it didn't have any other abilities. But 4 attack and X health on a taunt, where X is the amount of mana it costs, is also a reasonable price. A lot of times, big taunts with some kind of effect, I think Primordial Drake, Sagat the Slitherer, you get way less power up front, the amount of butt that you paid for the mana cost, and then something. And so this is something. I think that the ability to also not even have to play it if you want the heal and then play other stuff is relevant enough that I expect to see it.
I don't know. I'm actually thinking about this card more. I don't think I like it as much. It seems awkward at points, and there's, I don't know. It really depends on how much Warlock's able to life tap in the early game, and also just if you draw it and don't get the full 4 life, and then I don't know, the 4-mana 4 or 6-mana 4/6 taunt is, I don't know, feels lackluster to me. So I guess we'll kind of see. It just feels like a kind of mediocre all around to slightly less. I'd probably give it like a C-.
Yeah, it depends. You play this card if aggro is in the meta, right? This is a card that does not see play if we're in a mid-range or slower meta, or if it's a control card. You play this card if aggro is in the meta, and you can pair this with other cards in the environment. Ziliax, obviously, Rotten Apple Bomb. There's a whole bunch of other cards. Proud Defender, like you were talking about, Appa. There's a lot of other cards that you can play. But in a controlling Warlock shell, if you want to be anti-aggro and anti-burn in particular, this is probably the way to do that. But I do think that Crush is saying in chat that Rotten Apple Bomb probably sees more play than this. I think that's likely true.
Yeah, I think so. Because the biggest thing I'm thinking about with this is just the aggro decks have a way to get through. Traditionally, aggro decks have a way to get through minions like that once or twice. And if this card is eating a silence or something, you're probably dead. I guess you gained the 4 at some point, maybe, assuming you didn't draw this on turn 1 or 2.
Yeah, if you're gaining the health
risky.
and it's eating a silence, I would take this over Apple Bomb every day, because getting to have both is a thing that's usually a trade-off. You don't usually get to have both. Yeah,
but this is like a turn later. That's pretty significant against an aggro deck.
Which is why it's why it's a C ranking. It's a solid inclusion. Does not make a deck exist, but probably goes in it if you have the support. I think that's exactly where it belongs, because this would never be your only taunt in a deck. not like, okay, I'm not playing any other defensive cards. I've got the Broodmother. No. It's you play Ziliax. You probably play Applebomb anyways. You have a lot of other taunts in your deck, a lot of other control cards. This is just it hits the critical mass in a couple different places in both the healing and the taunt, which are both very different, especially if Hunter is good, especially if some kind of Burn Mage is good, and often if Rogue is good. And having access to that, I think, is significant. Not to mention that if we're plot twisting, this card is very good if we're plot twisting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just lower on it than you guys, but that's fine. My next card is actually, I think it's a C. It's actually two different cards, and I'm not sure which one, if any of them are better than the other, but there's Portal Keeper and Portal Overfiend, and I'll just say what Portal Keeper does, which is a 4-mana neutral minion, a 5/2 demon with a battle cry of shuffle 3 portals into your deck, and the portals are essentially, when you draw them, you summon a 2/2 demon with Rush, and you draw a card. So they cycle through and they give you extra demons on the battlefield. And then Portal Overfiend is the same card, except 2 mana more and 4 more toughness. So kind of depending on where these cards go will or what kind of deck these cards would go in depends on which one you would take, if you don't take both of them, which I'm not sure you don't do. But I kind of imagine a Warlock deck playing a card like this, where you're, especially the reason why I put the 4-mana one first is just because if you can fit this into, say, a Zoo-ish type deck, you're already churning through your deck fairly quickly, and getting extra 2/2 demons with Rush on your turn, especially if you're life tapping or something like that, or you're drawing 3 cards that you discard at end of turn. Just, it seems like Zoo kind of goes through its deck pretty quickly, and replacing those minions, I don't know, just seems like a fairly solid card. If there's a deck that can support a card like this, I think you play it. And yeah, I like both of these cards. It just seemed interesting to me. It's not super flashy, but at the same time, I think the effect is more powerful than at first glance.
Yeah, I want to try these cards out in like a Warlock deck with Aranasi Broodmother and Plot Twist and like the Fell Lord and stuff like that. Just really go all in on like the Plot Twist gimmick and just like see how far that can take you. Yeah, that'd be really interesting, because if you do that and like you discard your hand and draw some cards, if you draw the imps while you're drawing the cards, they're gonna like cast one drawn, and then you get some value out of it. It's similar to how Faldori Strider gives you some value whenever you're drawing through your deck. Like say you have some spiders in your deck, you can play Sprint. Like you'll draw some cards, and like if you hit a spider or two, it's like really good tempo swing. Obviously, these are not even close to the same power level as Faldori Strider, but I think the same principles can kind of they like the same things transfer over to that scenario. So I'd like to try that out to get a good feel for these.
I really like that they have Rush. It makes it feel like you get a little bit of tempo, especially if you're in a more aggressive Warlock deck and can really use that Rush to help punch through. Maybe some 6-mana 4/6s help you get in there. And Demons is not an irrelevant creature type. It seems like there are a few cards that care about Demons in this set, so I'm looking forward to seeing what this card can do.
So
Appa.
for my C, I have Henchclan Shadequill. It is a priest minion. It's 4 mana. It's a 4/7, and it has Death Rattle, restore 5 health to the enemy hero. So it has the Zombie Chow Death Rattle. And this really reminds me a lot of Twilight Drake, because in priest, it's not like how it is in Even Warlock, where you just like gas up your hand with your hero power really quickly, then you play a 4/10. In priest, usually your Twilight Drakes are around like a 4/6 or 4/7, because your hand's not super full, unless you're really, really going off with Northshire Cleric and like Circle of Healing and stuff like that. So I feel like on average, this is probably the stats that you're usually getting from a Twilight Drake anyways, but you don't have to like do anything to get that to work. All you have is the drawback of restoring 5 health to the enemy hero. And I've taken lethal from Auchenai and Zombie Chow enough times to know that's not nothing. And if you are running Auchenai Circle, it's unlikely to matter a lot, but it is a way to end a game sometimes. I think any slow priest deck is probably going to want this, just because it's just a big chunky 4-mana minion that fights on the board really, really well. So I think this card's definitely a solid C, potentially maybe even a B. Probably not. It's probably just a C. It's a solid card. It'll probably go in a decent amount of decks if you're playing a little bit of a board centric control deck. Just looking to fight for the mid game board a little better. This definitely does the job. So
Well,
I have this at C for me.
We've got Auchenai Phantasm in Standard as well, 2-mana 3/2 version. And we've got Reckless Experimenter in Standard. So, if you want, you can go Phantasm Experimenter Pyroblast you. So, that's a thing. Just throwing that
this
there.
card, this card to me feels like the perfect in between of Zombie Chow and Antique Healbot. Antique Healbot not quite good enough on the body size.
Oh, Corrupted Healbot.
Corrupted Healbot. Sorry. Zombie Chow was obviously a little too good. Antique Healbot just a little bit not good enough. And this feels like a really good in-between. It's a lot more resistant to silence than Twilight Drake, which I like a lot. And yeah, just cool, solid minion. I'd say like C+. I'm giving pluses and minuses. I don't know why.
So how about you, Hat? What's your B for this set?
Okay. So, it's a priest card. It's the littlest obsidian statue ever. It's a 5-mana priest 2/6 rare called Convincing Infiltrator. It has Taunt and Death Rattle destroy a random enemy minion. And every time I think about playing against this card, I think, man, that's gonna be so annoying. Especially when Katarina Muerte brings it back. And this would be the card if we had the questions from last week on. I would say I don't want to play against, which is why I think it's relevant. And more importantly, I don't think Priest has a lot of tools right now. Because, their core set is bad. So, a taunt that is annoyingly sized also kills a thing. And theoretically comes back because that's what Priest does, I guess. Seems really relevant. Especially when, if you want, you can play the 2-mana 2/2 that copies a Death Rattle. Or, no, it becomes a copy of a Death Rattle minion that you have. So it becomes a 2/2 with Taunt and kill a thing. It becomes a Spider Bomb with Taunt for 2 mana. I don't know if we're Death Rattle Priesting, but I do know that we're playing this card. And this card might make me want a Death Rattle Priest. So I think that's significant. It's really, really annoying. And if I'm an aggro deck, I don't want to face this. If I'm a mid-range deck, I don't really want to face this. If I'm a control deck, I'm fine. And if I'm in the mirror, I never want to get Cabal Shadow Priested ever.
So what we do is we attack our 5/5 Hench Clan Thug into this, and then we use the last charge of our Waggle Pick, and then the Waggle Pick triggers first to get back the Hench Clan Thug before it kills before the Death Rattle trigger goes off and kills the Hench Clan Thug. Then we get to replay the Hench Clan Thug.
We figured it out. We have successfully leveled the Convincing Infiltrator meta with Waggle Pick.
That Hench Clan is very safe. It's doing a dance. I don't even know how to respond to that, so we can just keep going.
All right. So how about you, Botticus? What's your next one?
Yeah, just that card does seem quite good. So I probably should have just reordered this because I think that this one's actually probably a D.
Yeah.
It's a Tack Noswhisker, 7 mana legendary rogue minion, 6/6. Whenever you shuffle a card into your deck, add a copy to your hand. And everybody's already said this, but academic espionage in this card is nice. Getting to go this card, prep, espionage, fill your hand with 1 mana, whatever it is you're playing against, just seems super sweet. And I really want to play with it. I think it's probably not very good, and is probably not going to see a lot of play, except for day one when I'm playing it, because I want to play this card, and I think it's sweet. So I wanted to talk about it because it's a rogue card, and it's cool, and I want to play it. And also, you could just play this card and then play Lab Recruiter and add 3 7 mana 6/6s to your hand, and also 3 to your deck.
Yeah, well,
So
Togwaggle
that
Scheme,
later,
right? This is obviously the Togwaggle Scheme card. I mean, we saw the reveal that the Wombo Combo Dream is the prep espionage.
Yeah.
But the
Also, by the way, amazing LP in the go watch those videos.
Oh,
His
yeah, yeah,
reveal
yeah.
videos are so insane every time, and he just stepped it up again for this video. It was so incredible.
Yeah, the when the Jaina put the Vaporize up, I was like, wow. But yes, that's the Wombo combo. It's really cool. It's really just a question of this card is so slow, and it's a lot of value, but it's so slow. And you have to be a rogue deck that doesn't heal and takes a bunch of damage and generates incremental value slowly and has to pay full price for all of your cards except your spells because you play prep, because prep's a messed up card, and sometimes you shadow step minions, whatever. In order to you have to get to this point, and that's what this card doesn't really have figured out. Value rogue is usually an anti-control instrument. It would fit into lineup sometimes when we'd have 4 decks to pick, but we don't anymore. We have 1. And I don't think the tools are there for your deck and specialists to ever be value rogue unless the meta is really mid-range and control heavy. And if it is, tack your Noswhiskers off. Like, go for it. But I don't know if we're going to get there. I hope we do. I would love to have a slow rogue meta. Slowg meta.
We do still have Spectral Cutlass.
We do.
Which is a card that you would probably play in the same deck. So you do have some healing for
Yeah.
rogue. But yeah, this card is like Kibler's name written all over it.
Yes, this goes in the test deck probably. And and now the thing is, Burger Rogue did get some tools this set, and they did get a Totem Golem with Rush if you play Pilfer on one. If you play Pilfer on one and your opponent's not a rogue.
Yeah, or you could just play this as a 2 mana 2/3, and if you draw it later, then in a deck like this, it's probably going to be a 2 mana 3/4 with Rush, which is super good.
Yeah.
Why can't rogues steal from each other?
Well, they're printing new cards like Hench Clan Burglar, where it's discover a card from another class, and that's the direction they're moving in going forward, but they're not retroactively changing Blink Fox and Pilfer.
But yeah, that was the other card, Underbelly Fence. Whew, that card is good.
Yes.
That card seems really good if you can make a deck that holds other cards from other classes, which it doesn't seem like they got a ton of availability to do that.
Well,
to
you
get cards
keep
from other classes other than the one pirate, right?
well you keep Blink Fox and Pickpocket from the last set.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying if you're playing in the
Oh
mirror.
yeah,
I
in
think
the mirror
is
it's
still
just
gonna
that one card.
Still going to be bad.
Yeah, they said on the Happy Hearthstone interview that's how they're going to do it going forward, but they're not going to change things going backwards.
That's how they're going to try it for this year, is what they said.
Yeah.
They don't know
Right.
necessarily know if they're going to continue that for the rest. That's why they didn't go back and change any cards, because they're not sure if this is the way they want to take Pilfer Rogue.
Yes. All right. So the remaining 4 cards on this document are all from the same deck. So should we just talk about that deck now? Because it's all of our A's are all, and Appa's B, because he just couldn't stay away from Shaman, are all Murloc Shaman cards. All 4 of them. So why don't we just talk about that now, and that'll close out the section. Because, oh boy, Murloc Shaman, it got seemingly everything. It got seemingly all the cards. And Appa, you get to start. You get to sit up in your chair, and you get to tell us all about all these cards. I actually think that your A card is the worst one, by the way, but we'll talk about that.
Really?
I think Scargill is the worst one of the cards we're about to talk about by a large margin.
Yeah. I put that with Underbelly Angler
Oh, yeah.
because that's the combo. That's the dream.
I mean, you can just play
Scargill,
Ghostlight
you just
Angler.
put in there because you just put it in there.
You can just play Ghostlight Angler, and it's the same thing.
Okay, so Scargill is a 4-mana 4/4 legendary Murloc. It has the text, your Murlocs cost 1. Underbelly Angler is a 2-mana 2/3 Murloc that says after you play a Murloc, add a random Murloc to your hand. And the other one that I had down is Toxfin. It's a neutral 1-mana 1/2 Murloc with Battle Cry, give a friendly Murloc poisonous. And Murloc Shaman is pushed this expansion. And I've been saying it for the past, not even weeks, past months, the past expansions, that whenever Shaman doesn't have anything to do, they have to print a good deck for it, because its classic cards are a disaster right now, because they took away all of its good cards, they nerfed them really hard, and they don't really have anything left. So they had to print the entirety of the Murloc Shaman deck in this expansion. And yeah, I mean, they really did it. they pushed it about as far as you could. And I was kind of worried about this deck until I was thinking about this while I was driving earlier. And we don't have Gentle Megasaur anymore, which is going to be a big hit to Murloc strategies, because Megasaur was effectively War Leader's number 3 and 4, in that you would play them on an already developed board, and then you would get a big effect from them. Because Grimscale Oracle doesn't do that much, it just gives them +1 attack, and it's really small. Whereas Megasaur had a big impact and left behind a solid body, which is what War Leader does. So losing Gentle Megasaur is a big hit, but I don't think it's big enough to keep Murloc decks from seeing play. I mean, we're also losing Rock Bull Hunter, which is a big thing. But with Shaman, I've played the Quest Shaman memes before, and it has some solid some solid framework underneath it, which is you can have really aggressive starts with Tidecaller into cheap Murlocs, or you can just grind out a value game with, you can like go all the way up to Hagatha and Shutterwalk if you have enough battle cries, but you can go all the way up to Hagatha and then just start refilling and grinding out a game from there, because you play Ghostlight Anglers, and then in this specific deck you would play Underbelly Angler.
You mean Murloc the Sun Shard? Is that what you mean?
Yes,
this is
Murloc
the
Sun
littlest,
Shard.
fishiest Lyra I've ever seen.
Yeah. So the way that this is playing, or that this deck will play, will be a good bit different from other Murloc decks that we've had in the past. This will most likely be more of a mid-game focused deck, where you're investing your cheap minions onto the board to keep control of the board and gain some tempo, where you can find space to leverage your big refill tools. And those being Scargill with Underbelly Angler, or Scargill with Hagatha out, or what Scargill with whatever. It's just a really powerful effect. And then Underbelly Angler is a really solid refill tool. So they printed a lot of stuff for Shaman specifically, but I think Toxfin is actually the best Murloc that's been released so far. Underbelly Angler is very strong. It's quite slow, and you'll probably just play it out on 2 a lot of the time, and I expect it to die on 2 a lot of the time. But games where it doesn't, it seems like a Fandral to me, whereas like if you get to take your turn with it, you really just go off. Whereas I saw Toxfin, and I immediately compared it to Razormaw. And I thought to myself, if Razormaw was a 1-mana 1/2 and could only give poisonous, would I put it in my deck? And the answer was 100% of the time. because that's what I'm looking for probably the majority of the time with Crackling Razormaw. It's either that or +3 attack. And we've had Plague Scientists see play before, and it was fine. It was never great. But this card just removes 2 off of everything from there. It removes 2 off the mana cost, and then 1 from the attack and the health, and just staples the Murloc tag on it, and already makes it way better than Plague Scientist. So I imagine there are going to be a lot of games where you try and stabilize behind one taunt, your opponent goes far right, Toxfin, put it on this 1/1, kill your thing. I have developed a massive tempo advantage for this many mana, and I'm holding up one finger for the audio listeners. So I think Toxfin is really strong, and Scargill and Underbelly Angler are great refill tools and really strong mid-game things to be working towards as a shaman. And I know Hat had a separate card to talk about as well.
So, and before we get any further, compare Toxfin to Hunter's Mark. Cost 2. This costs 1 mana with a 1/2. Yes, you have to play Murlocs, but there's not going to be a shortage of that, especially not with Bluegill Warrior being a thing. And you can just 3 mana kill a thing, which is like Plague Scientist, except not really. It's better. And the card I want to talk about is Soul of the Murloc, because you remember Soul of the Forest, where 4 mana and your minions, when they die, they turn to 2/2s. Well, how about half the cost and half the size? By the way, this class plays Bloodlust. So it's a 2 mana spell. Gives all your minions Death Rattle, make a 1/1 Murloc. And you're in the Bloodlust class. Combined with the refuel mechanics, and the Ghostlight Anglers, and the Underbelly Anglers, and Scargill if you want, and Toxfin to keep the board clear, and Sludge Slurper to get some lackeys, and, you know, your normal Murloc cards, Cold Light Seers to protect the board. By the way, 5 mana, you take a bunch of damage. So, this is the most pushed and pre-built archetype that I see. And there's a bunch of them. There's Bomb Warrior, there's Sacrifice Your Own Minions Warlock, there's Heal Druid, and there's Dragon Paladin, but this is the one where it's clear Blizzard took all these cards of similar costs and put them together and expects you to play with them. It seems like it's going to be really good because a lot of these costs are scary. A lot of these costs are just a little bit more aggressive than I expected. And we've seen this before with this class. With this class, where they didn't have a good core set, and they hadn't had good decks in a while, and then they got a shove.
Can they just, like, hire me to design specifically shaman cards? Just, like, revamp the core set completely and stop printing all this nonsense? Obviously, we haven't played with the cards yet, but man, these are some undercosted powerful effects.
Thank goodness they nerfed Flame Tongue Totem.
Yes.
Could you imagine how good Flame Tongue Totem would be?
We're still playing that card. That card is going in this deck.
Oh yeah, it's still going in the deck, but imagine if it was 1 mana less. Oh boy.
Does Primal Fin Totem rotates out, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Rockpool Hunter definitely rotates out. Primal Fin rotates out. Gentle Megasaur is the big one that's really important that'll leave so you don't give anything Divine Shield. Nightmare Amalgam stays around. And
that's a big Murloc.
And there's the 4 mana 3/3 that makes 2 1/1 amalgams. Those are both Murlocs, and that's 4 mana for 3 minions. And in a Bloodlust deck, you just want to go wide, especially when you're giving them all Soul of the Murloc. And you play Soul of the Murloc, you don't trade. You go face. And then they try and kill it, and your stuff doesn't die. It dies once, but it doesn't die twice. And then you Bloodlust them.
Yeah, well, I was looking over some of these cards earlier today. Soul of the Murloc specifically, my initial reaction and an opinion I held for like a few hours was that this card wasn't very good because go wide shaman decks have not been good for a while.
You know
Pretty
why?
much exclusively because Defile existed.
Yep. That's the biggest buff to this deck. No more Defile anymore.
Yeah, basically whenever people started just playing Defile all the time, Token Shaman was just dead. Just couldn't actually exist because they would go 2 mana,
You know what else
destroy
is gone?
your entire board.
You know what else is gone?
What?
Duskbreaker. You know what the earliest mass removal spell is now is Mass Hysteria, and you know what comes in what does really good against Mass Hysteria is this Murloc spell, Soul of the Murloc.
Also, Cold Light's here because then you have a bunch of 1/3s, and it's like, yeah, they can bump into each other. Who
Actually,
cares?
that's worse because then they all attack each other a bunch.
Oh,
That's what.
oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good point.
Mass Hysteria likes really big butts. It does not like death rattles.
Don't we all, Botticus?
I like big butts and I cannot lie.
No.
So,
Not
anyways,
doing that.
the point here is the Murloc cards are all a little scary. I think Scargill's a little overrated. It's a 4-mana 4/4, and I think all the Murlocs are really cheap. So generally, it won't be getting you a good deal. It's just you include it because you're already doing all this other stuff. Toxin and Soul of the Murloc in particular. I think Angler is good. I think I like the Fandral comparison. I think that's a pretty good one. Or like Stargazer Luna, where you'll often play it on curve and then get extra value sometimes. But Toxin and Soul of the Murloc in particular, along with Sludge Slurper, which we didn't even talk about. Dave Kosak said it best.
Evil! It's an evil card!
I think these cards are evil.
Yeah, so I didn't include Sludge Slurper because I don't view this as a Murloc specific card. Most of my brews for the new expansion include Sludge Slurper as the only Murloc in the deck because we got Lickums and Thunderheads going on. And then like with Hagatha, then you just really get to go off. You get like 3 cards. It's sweet. But yeah. These Murloc cards for Shaman definitely look like the clear, like, build me decks, like right out of the gate.
It'll
They
be a
look like
deck recipe.
pre-constructed decks, basically.
It
Yeah.
will be a deck recipe. I predict there will be a more optimized version. And also, I'd like to point out, this is a Bloodlust deck, not a Murloc deck. We get to play Murlocs, but now is the time for Thunderhead. We get to play Thunderhead. Which means, if we're Thunderheading, might be time for Hungry Crabs and Beakered Lightnings, which would make me real sad, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, I do think that we have something here. I think that Shaman will see play. I just hope it's the good Shaman, not the evil Shaman. And we're 2 hours and 20 minutes in, so
How long can this go on?
6 more days, I'm gonna die! Thanks to everyone that helps support the show. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out the thanks section on our website at coincade.com. You can find our contact info, show notes, and Patreon information. We're also going to try and get any deck lists we talk about into the show notes. We don't have any this week because all the deck lists are from the future. You can support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.tv/coinconcedepodcast. Join our community chats and our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede, as well as like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Viriatus, Ryan, Donald, Pug Ugly, Doge TK, Appa, Coinconcede. Go, now.
Look, I'm on the spot. I didn't have one. I'm sorry. Botticus, take it.
Botticus, Coinconcede, now.
I will coin concede to my opponent from the last week of our specialist series, SC2 Forever. Had a very fun match where I was victorious. I won the top deck war of me drawing the card I need, then him drawing Zul'jin, and then me drawing Kalamos to win. And but man, I love Elemental Shaman. I wish people were doing better with it, but it feels like unless you draw the I think Purple calls it the Innervate, the Innervate Elemental. Unless you draw that one, the deck plays out a lot worse. So yeah, it was a fun match. I don't think that I made the top 8, and I'm a little sad. But it's okay.
I got 9th. Dagger.
You went 3-1?
I did. Yeah.
Were you playing real lineups?
Semi-real.
All right, so I have my coin concede now.
Go ahead. Do it.
I'm gonna coin concede to Volcano and Healing Rain because we've had a good run, and I've played with those cards a lot And a lot of those times I should not have been playing with those cards, but I can't help myself. I'm a glutton for punishment. But I really love those cards. I've loved them since they've been printed. Love playing with them, and I'm gonna miss them. I'm gonna miss casting my golden volcanoes and seeing the little volcano bits go doof 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 on all the minions and kill everything. And I'm also gonna miss the goofy lethals with Light Warden healing rains that you would randomly get in crazy games.
Yeah, I'm gonna coin concede to Year of the Mammoth for doing two things for us. First, showing us that power creep is fun for a very short time, but can be really fun and distinctive and interesting, and for trying new things and taking risks. And I'm going to thank it again for getting the hell out of my standard. And that 1-2 punch right there, it was a good time. Ungoro standard is my favorite standard ever. I think Ungoro Burn Mage, I was thinking about this today, might be my favorite deck to play in a moment. Not one that's persisted over time like Miracle Rogue, because it's Miracle Rogue, maybe Zoo. But Ungoro Burn Mage in particular was one of the most fun decks I've ever played, and really enjoyed that era. And it's been a fun time, but it's time for you to go. And it's time for the Year of the Dragon to roll in. And honestly, it's time for a Year of the Raven to be around for the first time. So we got 2 cards from last year.
Without Genenbaku.
Those were the only 2 cards we got from Year of the Raven and Giggling Inventor before they nerfed it. And I don't know, Mechathune? Ugh. So I'm looking forward to the rest of Year of the Raven mattering, and I'm really looking forward to Year of the Dragon and for Year of the Mammoth to ride off into the wild sunset. And I'd also like to coin concede to Pennypacker. He was in town last week, and we got to go out and drank some beers and had some sushi, and it was really nice. Sometimes I think just how absurd it is that we all talk about video games on the internet, and then sometimes people are like, hey, I listened to you do that. Can we get food? And I'm like, yeah. And that happens. So props to all of you, listeners, patrons, everyone that kind of makes this crazy thing happen, because it wouldn't be the same without you. I've been in the show over 2 years, and I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. Even when I'm not playing Hearthstone, not enjoying the game, I enjoy you all, and now I'm jonesing for some more Hearthstone. I want some more Hearthstone real bad. And coin concede to Steven Sensei for the real name of this upcoming year, Year of the Zilliacs. It's coming. Orange made an infographic today. It was a flowchart. Do you have Zilliacs in your deck? Yes. Good. No. Do you have a reason not to? Yes. Put it in your deck anyway. No. Put in Zilliacs. So I think they'll probably nerf it to 6 mana because of that. But
I think my favorite part about this rotation is that Genenbaku have dominated for so long since their release that we haven't really played with too much else. So it's almost going to be like we're getting an entire new year of stuff along with this expansion. So I'm so ready. I'm so ready.
Yep.
I'm so excited.
I have next week off. I'm like, we're going in. We're going in. I took vacation time to KonMari the house, Marie Kondo style. So I might be single at the end of next week. We'll see what happens. And to play just an unhealthy amount of Hearthstone. So I am ready. But until then, for the next 6 days, keep calm. And cards, new cards, give me the new cards, give us the new cards. No, keep calm and wait. 6 more days. We're almost there. And if you see us on the ladder, first, why are you playing old ladder? And second, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Rise of Shadows. Coin concede.
Evil! It's an evil card!
Take cold comfort in your victory. You win. I can rest now. You win. For now. Now, your victory proves nothing. death. You have triumphed. This time, this hunt is yours.